you ever felt ignored, underestimated, or disrespected by women, no matter how hard you try? Today, we're going to solve that problem. And I'll show you the Machiavellian strategy that instantly earns respect without forcing it. In the grand theater of human interaction, power is subtle and influence is silent. The way one is perceived often outweighs what one says or does. Niccolo Machiavelli, the master of strategy and human nature, teaches us that respect is not given. It is earned through presence, calculated action, and self-mastery. Today, we uncover the precise maneuver that ensures a woman respects you instantly, as if your authority is written in the very air around you. You arrive in a room. Your presence is met with indifference. Your words fall like pebbles into an ocean. Why? Because respect is not a right, it is a currency, earned by those who understand human nature. Imagine entering a room where every eye drifts toward you. Not because you demanded attention, not because you raised your voice or flaunted your wealth, but simply because of the way you occupy space. That, my friend, is the power of presence. In the world of human interaction, perception is reality. Before words are spoken, before gestures are made, before any action is taken, how you carry yourself silently communicates your value, your confidence, and ultimately, your authority. Machiavelli, the master of strategy and human understanding, would tell you that those who are noticed, who are remembered, are those who understand this invisible currency. Presence is not vanity. Presence is power. Presence is the subtle art of commanding respect without uttering a single syllable. To harness presence, you must first understand its roots. Presence is not simply standing tall or speaking loudly. It is a complex interplay of posture, gaze, movement, and intention. It is in the way you walk, steady and unhurried, as though every step is deliberate and meaningful. It is in the calmness of your breathing, the quiet confidence of a man who knows where he is going and why. Presence is the aura of certainty that surrounds you, invisible yet undeniable, influencing everyone in your vicinity without a word being exchanged. Women, like all humans, are instinctively attuned to such signals. They sense it in micro-expressions, in the way your eyes briefly hold theirs, in the subtle firmness of your handshake, in the way your shoulders rest naturally, neither slouched in weakness nor tense with desperation. Machiavelli would remind us that perception can be manipulated, cultivated, and controlled. Presence is not merely something you are born with, it is a skill, a strategic tool, a weapon if wielded correctly. Begin by observing those who naturally command attention. Notice how they never rush, how their calm demeanor masks the storm of thoughts within. Notice how their words, when they finally speak, carry weight because they are few, precise, and intentional. The power of presence lies in restraint. Do not fill silence with meaningless chatter. Instead, let silence amplify your aura. Let your calm and collected nature be a silent signal. You are in control, and this control commands respect. Physicality matters, but so does mental framing. The man who understands presence knows that his internal state broadcasts externally. Anxiety, self-doubt, and eagerness leak into posture, into speech, into eye contact. Moment you worry about how you are perceived, you diminish your presence. Instead, cultivate an internal sense of authority. Remind yourself that your value is inherent, that respect is drawn to those who embody certainty. Machiavelli often emphasized that leaders or men of influence appear stronger than they feel. They project confidence because perception is far more powerful than reality in the eyes of others. Women respect a man who appears unshakable, who moves with purpose, who gives the impression that he is the master of his world, even if internally he is learning, strategizing, or adapting. To truly command respect through presence, every detail must be considered. Your voice should carry a measured tone, neither too loud to be aggressive, nor too soft to be disregarded. Your gaze must convey interest, but never neediness. Eyes are instruments of influence. A steady, composed gaze signals confidence, while darting eyes betray insecurity. Your movements should be deliberate, almost choreographed, as if every gesture is a silent assertion of your control over the environment. Avoid fidgeting, over-explaining, or seeking approval. Each of these diminishes your presence and signals a lack of authority. Presence is also amplified through subtle mystery. Machiavelli understood the power of unpredictability, the allure of the unknown. Do not reveal all facets of yourself at once. Allow intrigue to build. Let your actions speak. Let your demeanor hint at layers of depth that others must discover. When a woman encounters a man who embodies calm authority and controlled mystery, respect follows naturally. It is drawn to him like iron to a magnet because he exudes self-possession, a rare and compelling quality. Presence is not about dominating or overpowering. It is about creating a gravitational pull that draws others into your orbit without them realizing why. Finally, presence is inseparable from preparation. The man who walks into a room with confidence has prepared himself mentally, emotionally, and physically for the encounter. He has rehearsed in his mind how he wishes to appear, how he wishes to influence, and how he will navigate interactions. Machiavelli often argued that those who fail to prepare are at the mercy of circumstance, while those who anticipate, who plan, and who control what is seen and unseen command outcomes. Presence is the outward manifestation of this preparation. It is the silent declaration that you are not to be underestimated, not because you demand it, but because your very existence commands attention. To cultivate presence, begin with small steps. Stand taller, slow your movements, control your gaze, speak with intention, and master the art of silence. Observe the reactions of those around you and refine your approach. With time, your presence will become natural, magnetic, and undeniable, leaving women, and indeed everyone you encounter, instinctively respecting the man who has learned the subtle art of commanding without force, influencing without words, and dominating the perception of those around him. Respect is not something that is freely given. It is a treasure that must be earned, cultivated with precision, and protected as one would a kingdom. Many men believe that respect can be demanded through force, status, or incessant attention. Yet Machiavelli teaches us a different law, that true respect is strategic. It is not the loudest voice in the room that commands deference, nor the one who pleads for recognition. It is the man who understands the psychology of influence, who anticipates the desires and weaknesses of others, and who positions himself in a way that respect flows naturally toward him. Strategic respect is the art of ensuring that others recognize your value without you having to announce it. The silent mastery of influence that makes people, women included, defer to your presence, judgment, and authority. To cultivate strategic respect, one must first understand the delicate balance between approachability and authority. Machiavelli observed that leaders who are too distant are dismissed as cold, while those who are too familiar are easily manipulated or undervalued. The man who commands respect walks the line between these extremes. He is neither desperate for approval nor detached to the point of irrelevance. Instead, he demonstrates discernment in his attention. He chooses carefully when to speak and when to remain silent, when to act and when to observe. Each decision is intentional, reinforcing the perception of a man who is thoughtful, deliberate, and above the chaos of reaction. In practice, strategic respect requires patience. It is not immediate, it is nurtured over time. Consider your interactions as a series of calculated moves, a game in which every gesture, tone, and expression carries meaning. When you compliment, do so with subtlety and precision. Avoid excessive flattery, which signals insecurity. When you assert your opinions, speak with authority, but leave room for dialogue, allowing others to feel heard while recognizing that your judgment is sound. Women, like all humans, are attuned to the subtle cues that reveal strength and weakness. Strategic respect is the recognition of those cues and the ability to shape them to your advantage without manipulation or coercion. Machiavelli understood that perception is more powerful than reality. It is not enough to possess qualities worthy of respect. Others must perceive them clearly. Therefore, strategic respect is also about controlled presentation. How you carry yourself in social interactions, how you respond to challenges, and how you manage disagreement all contribute to the reputation that precedes you. A man who remains composed under pressure, who addresses conflict with measured calmness rather than impulsive reaction, becomes someone whose opinions are valued and whose presence commands authority. In essence, strategic respect is less about what you do in private and more about how your actions are perceived in the theater of social dynamics. Another crucial element of strategic respect is selective engagement. Do not involve yourself in trivial arguments or endless debates that diminish your stature. Machiavelli would advise that every engagement must serve a purpose, every interaction must reinforce your position. By choosing carefully where to invest your attention, you signal to others that your time, energy, and approval are valuable. Women respect men who are selective, not because they are aloof, but because they understand their own worth and the worth of their interactions. This selectivity communicates self-possession and discernment, qualities that are magnetic and commanding. Furthermore, strategic respect involves understanding the dynamics of reciprocity. Respect is not a one-way transaction. It is earned when you offer value while maintaining boundaries, when you demonstrate competence, reliability, and confidence without overtly seeking validation. People naturally reciprocate with respect. Machiavelli would insist that the wise man cultivates alliances and relationships where mutual recognition reinforces his authority. The same principle applies in the microcosm of social and romantic interactions. A woman respects a man who acts with integrity, who demonstrates self-control, and who creates an environment where admiration is a natural response rather than a demanded outcome. Silence and timing are powerful tools in the arsenal of strategic respect.
There is a reason the most respected men are often those who speak less but are always heard.
By choosing your moments to contribute, you create weight behind your words. When you do speak, your message carries significance precisely because it is rare, deliberate, and impactful. Machiavelli would argue that influence is strengthened by restraint. Too much exposure dilutes respect. Too much eagerness erodes authority. Strategic respect thrives in the spaces where others are left to interpret your motives, where your actions inspire consideration and reflection rather than immediate judgment. Finally, strategic respect is a lifelong practice of awareness and adjustment. Observe the people around you, the subtleties of their reactions, the shifts in energy as you enter a space. Adapt, refine, and calibrate your approach, always with the end goal in mind, that respect is not an obligation, but a consequence of deliberate, calculated behavior. In mastering this, you understand the essence of Machiavellian strategy, that influence is not brute force, but the quiet, precise orchestration of perception, behavior, and timing. Strategic respect, once attained, becomes a shield, a currency, and a foundation upon which influence, authority, and personal power are built. In the complex arena of human relationships, power is rarely found in brute strength or charm alone. True influence, the kind that commands respect effortlessly, emerges from control over one's own emotions. Machiavelli, the master strategist, understood that emotions are both a tool and a trap. A man who cannot govern his inner state surrenders his outer authority. Emotional mastery is the silent force that underpins presence, strategic respect, and influence. And it is the mark of a man who is truly formidable. Women, like all people, instinctively sense emotional equilibrium. They are drawn to those who navigate life with composure, who do not flinch at provocation, who exude stability in the face of chaos. Emotional mastery is not suppression of feeling, but the deliberate orchestration of reaction, the ability to act with purpose rather than impulse. To cultivate emotional mastery, one must first understand the battlefield of the mind. Every social interaction, every glance, every exchange of words carries potential triggers. Without control, a man becomes a slave to the whims of his own feelings, reacting unpredictably to criticism, rejection, or conflict. Machiavelli would argue that a man who reacts without forethought exposes weakness, invites manipulation, and forfeits respect. Emotional mastery begins with awareness, recognizing the impulses that rise within, observing them without judgment, and choosing the course that best serves your strategic goals. The powerful man is not the one without emotions. He is the one who governs them with precision, bending them to his will. Consider the scenario of tension in a conversation. Perhaps a woman challenges you, questions your choices, or tests your patience. A man without emotional mastery might respond with defensiveness, sarcasm, or anger. He risks losing respect, not because his position was weak, but because his reaction revealed vulnerability. In contrast, a man who has mastered his emotions responds with calm assertiveness. He listens, assesses, and responds deliberately. He controls not only his words, but the energy he projects. Machiavelli would remind us that power is amplified by perception, and emotional control shapes that perception more than any argument or gesture ever could. The quieter the storm within, the greater the impression of stability and authority on the outside. Emotional mastery also requires detachment from immediate gratification. A man who seeks approval, who acts impulsively to please or impress, diminishes his own standing. Respect, especially from women, is rarely granted to those who appear eager or dependent. The Machiavellian approach teaches that influence is strengthened by restraint, by patience, by the ability to observe and act at the precise moment when your response will carry maximum weight. It is in the silence before the word, the pause before the gesture, that authority is felt. Emotional mastery transforms ordinary interactions into calculated displays of composure that others instinctively admire and defer to. Furthermore, emotional mastery is about anticipating the emotional dynamics of others and responding strategically. Machiavelli understood that humans are driven by emotion more than reason, and those who influence effectively navigate these currents rather than being swept away by them. By remaining calm, a man becomes a stabilizing force in any interaction. He creates an environment where respect and trust flourish because those around him perceive control, not chaos. Women respect men who remain unshaken by provocation, who handle tension with poise, and who demonstrate the ability to think clearly when others are driven by reactive impulses. Emotional mastery is the silent signal that you are not easily manipulated, that you are a constant in a world of uncertainty. The cultivation of emotional mastery is also deeply connected to self-awareness. A man must recognize his triggers, understand his fears, and be honest about his desires. Machiavelli would argue that self-knowledge is a prerequisite for influence, for one cannot project authority without first commanding the self. By observing internal reactions and choosing deliberate responses, a man converts potential vulnerabilities into instruments of power. He learns to navigate jealousy, frustration, and impatience without compromising his composure. This internal discipline manifests externally as confidence, magnetism, and the subtle authority that women respect instinctively. Finally, emotional mastery extends beyond control in moments of conflict. It is the ongoing cultivation of resilience, patience, and the ability to detach from outcomes that might otherwise provoke anxiety or agitation. Machiavelli emphasized that fortune favors the prepared, and the prepared man is one who has tempered his emotions to serve strategy rather than being enslaved by them. Emotional mastery allows you to navigate social dynamics with the grace of a general commanding his army, calm, deliberate, and unfazed by the chaos around him. It transforms ordinary encounters into demonstrations of subtle power, making respect, influence, and attraction natural consequences of your controlled presence, strategic choices, and silent authority. In the subtle art of influence, respect is rarely unilateral. To command it, one must first understand the principle of reciprocity, the silent law of exchange that governs human interaction. Machiavelli, in his study of power and human behavior, recognized that men who understand value and leverage it wisely shape the perceptions of others, compelling admiration and deference. Reciprocity of value is the practice of offering influence, support, and insight without neediness, cultivating respect by demonstrating that your presence, attention, and time are not freely given, but are selective and intentional. This is the principle that underlies attraction, authority, and enduring influence. Women, like all people, instinctively recognize value when it is genuine and perceive those who cultivate it as worthy of respect. To cultivate this form of influence, one must first define the value one offers. Value is not merely material wealth, physical appearance, or status, though these may contribute superficially. True value is manifested in qualities such as wisdom, confidence, insight, emotional stability, and the ability to enhance the experiences of those around you. A man who embodies value is one whose presence is enriching, whose words carry weight, whose actions signal competence and purpose. Machiavelli would advise that the perception of value is as critical as the value itself, for influence flows to those whose worth is recognized and appreciated. By establishing yourself as someone who contributes without neediness, who elevates rather than demands, you cultivate a gravitational pull of respect. Reciprocity of value is not transactional in a crude sense. It is subtle, almost imperceptible, yet powerful. The principle is simple. The more you demonstrate worth, integrity, and competence, the more others, and women in particular, respond with respect and recognition. If a man constantly seeks validation, pleads for attention, or overextends in an attempt to impress, he undermines his own standing. Machiavelli teaches that the wise man preserves his dignity by giving selectively, by offering value strategically rather than indiscriminately. When value is abundant yet controlled, it becomes magnetic. People instinctively respond to those who provide benefits, insight, or guidance while maintaining boundaries, and respect grows naturally as a consequence. Strategic value also requires understanding the desires, motivations, and needs of others without compromising your own. Machiavelli emphasized that power is not merely possession, but understanding and influence over human behavior. To be respected, one must recognize what others truly value and subtly integrate these insights into interactions. A man who perceives what is meaningful to others, who contributes in ways that enhance their lives while retaining self-possession, positions himself as indispensable yet unattainable. Women respect men who act with discernment, who offer support without desperation, and who create a sense of mutual benefit rather than obligation. Reciprocity of value is the silent acknowledgement that one's contributions are neither trivial nor automatic, they are meaningful and earned. The cultivation of value is inseparable from personal development. Machiavelli understood that a man's influence expands in direct proportion to the skills, knowledge, and qualities he possesses. By continually investing in oneself, mentally, emotionally, and strategically, a man ensures that his contributions are genuine and impactful. Value is amplified when it is authentic. Women, consciously or unconsciously, recognize authenticity and respond with admiration. Conversely, superficiality, pretense, or performative gestures diminish perceived worth and invite indifference. A man of substance commands respect effortlessly, precisely because his presence and actions consistently demonstrate that he brings more to the interaction than mere words. Equally important is the subtle art of restraint in giving value. Machiavelli would advise that scarcity enhances perception. When a man offers guidance, attention, or emotional support selectively, he elevates the significance of his contributions. Women, like all humans, are wired to respect and admire those whose value is not easily obtained, who operate from a place of self-possession rather than desperation. The deliberate withholding of excessive generosity, the measured application of influence, and the careful selection of moments to provide insight or assistance all contribute to an aura of worthiness. In this way, reciprocity of value is not transactional, but strategic, reinforcing respect while preserving authority. Finally, The principle of reciprocity extends beyond isolated interactions. It is a philosophy of relationship building. Respect endures when the contributions offered are consistent, meaningful, and aligned with self-respect. Machiavelli understood that influence is cumulative. Small, deliberate actions of value, repeated over time, create an environment where admiration, trust, and deference become habitual responses. By consistently embodying qualities that enhance the lives of others, while maintaining boundaries and self-possession, a man ensures that respect is not fleeting or superficial, but deeply rooted and lasting. Reciprocity of value transforms ordinary encounters into a framework of silent power, creating relationships where influence flows naturally, authority is recognized instinctively, and the admiration of women and people in general becomes an automatic, almost inevitable consequence of deliberate, strategic action.